Council environmental flows, and I note we do have the Chairman of HBRC in the room if questions go in that direction, but in the meantime I'll hand over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. So, councillors, this paper is being presented to you to consider a proposal that's been received from the Regional Investment Company around an option for additional environmental flows for the Regional Council from the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme. One of the key drivers in developing or proposing the development of the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme was around enhancing the environmental benefits that would accrue from increased water flow through the Tukitook catchment. And the Council has always kept this in mind as it's gone through assessing the options that have been brought forward. When Council first looked at the concession deed agreement, one of the requirements in that agreement in order to address some of these environmental benefits was around the addition of 4 million cubic metres of water annually to the Regional Council to be used over and above that which is already provided for in the resource consents. In other words, there's 4 million cubic metres of flushing flows that the company operating the dam is required to have as part of its resource consent conditions. But in addition to that, the Regional Council is able to acquire through its concession deed agreement an additional 4 million cubic metres a year to use as and when it requires for additional environmental enhancement purposes. Now, the key to that is that that water has to be paid for at the time. So from the time that water starts flowing, that 4 million cubic metres or whatever portion of it is used by the council over any 1 year is required. So there was always for the Regional Council going to be some quite significant budgeting consequences around how do we pay, or how much do we know, how much we're going to be using, and what the implications will be for that year on year. So this proposal that's come through now from the Hawke's Bay Regional Investment Company really is suggesting that Council consider the following option, that it actually removes that particular clause or provision from the concession deed agreement, but that it instead considers, as set out in the proposal, entering into a 35-year water user contract with the water being available from when it first flows at no cost up until year 10, and after that would be on a take or pay, or the same requirements as any other water user.
Could I just ask a question, because I'm not clear on what you're telling us? Is this the 4 million cubic metres in the concession deed, or is this an additional 4?
No. So what the proposal would be is that clause or that provision in the concession deed agreement would be removed. So it's an instead of the what's in the 4 million cubic, what's in the concession deed agreement. But it's not. Can I just clarify one other thing? It's not a part of the total for any condition precedent. So it's not part of the 45 million cubic metres.
I've got a question on that. Just to clarify that, question about the 4 million. Currently there's a 4 million cubic metres which is going to go down the river as flushing flows, for which we do not pay a cent. And the way this reads is that is to be deleted, and just the way it reads, it says that cancel. If you go and read, talks about it, you go and read it. In page 4.
Not reflected in the recommendation, though, Councillor.
But I'm just saying that 5 is how it reads. Let's be replaced with the thing. So it just seems to me as a.
So can I just clarify that, and then I'll get Mr Maxwell to answer. But In paragraph 3 of the agenda item, it says that note that this water, in other words, the 4 million cubic metres of water in the concession deed agreement is in addition to, and that's in bold,
Yeah.
the 4 million cubic metres of water required by the scheme for flushing flows. So it's in addition to that. And neither of them are part of any condition precedent
But
total.
then the next thing goes on, HBRC is proposing to HBRC that HBR remove the provision described above from the concession deed and replace it with.
Yes, and unfortunately, they're both 4 million cubic metres, so I can see why the confusion. If one was 4 and one was 3, it may be clearer, but...
And just to perhaps add a little bit of clarity, that the 4 million cubic metres is conditioned in the conditions of consent for the scheme. So the only way you could change that would be to vary the conditions of consent, which is outside of the scope of this.
Okay, so I'll just...
I just want to be clear too, is that, so the 4 million we've got, we keep, and this is an additional 4 million, so we'll have 8.
So the 4 million we've got, we don't have. Okay, so the 4 million is part of the requirement that the Rural Taniwha Water Partnership would have to set aside annually to meet the conditions of the resource consent that they've been granted by the Board of Inquiry.
Well, can I just get clarification, the river has?
Yes, effectively.
So the river
yes.
has 4 million?
Yes.
And it keeps 4 million?
Yes.
And this is additional
Yeah.
4 million? So,
Yeah.
which
So
we
that's
won't-
probably a good way of
which
understanding
we
it,
won't
Councillor.
drink, we'll
Yeah.
put it in the river.
Yes,
So the river will have 8 million?
well, the river will have 4 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
And then under the current proposal in the concession deed agreement, the council has an option of 4 million cubic metres more per year.
And your increased flows.
Don't know. I just want to understand it. So
Um,
an option, but if we action the option, it's not actually an option. We actually get another 4 million. So we'll have 8. That's what.
So the river would have 8.
The river
would have 8 if you'd like to put it like that. So the proposal really is how that 4 million is that additional 4 million is really
Thanks, Al.
formatted.
Well, one's gone to see what's happened to the other one, but yeah, I think that might. Yeah, good thinking, Councillor Barker. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, well done. Good thinking. Yeah, thank you. Let's have a cup of tea then. Go on. Mike always wants a cup of tea.